difficulties today. We are live. Today is January 30th, 2011, and with me here today is Don Baker.
I'm way too here, apparently.
The Atheist Experience is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 educational organization dedicated to positive atheism and the separation of church and state. In addition to this program, we offer a number of other programs and activities throughout the week, including the internet radio show, The Nonprofits, which airs on Saturday. We also have a happy hour on Thursdays at 7 p.m. And on Sundays, we have our Sunday brunch. It starts at about 11:30ish, followed by this event, and then our post-show dinner at El Arroyo, which will start at 6 p.m. Tonight. And if you are an atheist or atheist-friendly person in the Austin area and you'd like to join us for any of our events, please feel free to do so. You can find out more information about our activities at www.atheist-community.org. And let's see, what else was I going to talk about? Oh yeah.
Your rally?
Yeah, Rock Beyond Belief. I got to give a shout out to the guys at Rock Beyond Belief. Some of you may be aware that a few months ago, Fort Bragg, I believe, was the fort that sponsored Rock the Fort, which was an overtly Christian activity on the fort, and that caused a little bit of an uproar because their stated goal was to convert soldiers to Christianity. And
it involved government funds.
Yes,
too.
it did. Yes, it did. Use of government facilities and government funds. In response to that, a group of military atheists have banded together and they are promoting an event called Rock Beyond Belief, which will take place at some point in the future. The date has not been set yet, but if you're interested in finding out more information about this event, you can go to their website, which is rockbeyondbelief.com. They also have a Facebook page, which you can find them just by searching for Rock Beyond Belief. And if you go there and you want to find out more information and get regular updates, you can like that page. One of the things that you will do if you like that page is help them out a little bit, because apparently the military is monitoring how many people like that page, and the more likes that page gets, the more interest they perceive.
Brave New World, huh?
Yep, it is. So anyway, go check that out. And we'll be waiting for updates, and we'll give out more information as we get it on that event. So.
That's cool. So today, Jen, how many wrongs make a right? How many lies make the truth?
I don't know.
Maybe zero?
Yeah.
So what about 18 false statements, 8 unsubstantiated claims, 15 deceptive claims, and 15 cases of emotional manipulation? Would that make the truth?
I don't know, but it sounds like a great fundraising loan.
Yes, yeah. So today a member of ours brought in a letter that she received from Mike Huckabee plugging an organization called Renewing American Leadership. And this letter is a real piece of work. We have put it on our Atheist Experience blog. If you want to go take a look there, do you remember the address? atheistexperience.blogspot.com?
Yeah.
Okay. If you'd like to take a look at it there, it's there in a PDF format. You can take a look. So this letter is kind of a catalog of all the claims that you hear from Christians about atheists and how evil atheists are and how they're doing all this and that. And it's just really kind of a piece of work as far as fiction, I think. And it really casts into doubt, in my mind, Mike Huckabee's character if he authored such a thing, because it certainly got his name on it and certainly seems to be a personal letter from him. I would say it qualifies as fractally wrong because even the organization's goals that it's supporting, I think, are based on mythology and falsehoods. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. I think Jen is also got quite a number of things to say about the letter too.
Yeah, I've got some notes here. So.
Yeah, if you have anything in particular you want to say, just jump right in. Otherwise, okay. I'll keep plugging.
All right.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Because you got drowned out by Tracy last time, from what I heard. So I don't want to do that to you. So
no.
Just say stop. Well, one of the, just to give the audience a flavor for the letter, you know, if we were to talk about every single claim in here and why it's false, we'd have like a one-day show.
Yeah.
It would take a long time. So what I want to do is I want to go down the rabbit hole in one place just to give you a flavor for how wrong it is. And one of it has to do with a quote about Michael Newdow and the pledge case. So Michael Newdow is an atheist, an outspoken atheist, and in the early 2000s he did a court challenge of the U.S. pledge, specifically targeting the words "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. And he used his daughter as the interested party. That he was injured effectively by having his daughter have to recite this pledge. And the real issue here is that the government was mandating that his daughter recite the pledge that includes this religious thing in it. And he challenged it on First Amendment grounds, and in particular on the Establishment Clause, which reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion." And this clause has been widely interpreted over the years to apply to all manner of religious involvement where the state really can't be promoting or preventing other religions, inhibiting other religions. So one of the things that's grown up out of this First Amendment is the thing called the Lemon Test, which is a test that's been used by the Supreme Court to test whether or not particular efforts by the government or whatever violate the Establishment Clause. And briefly, the action must have a secular purpose. It must not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion, and it must not result in an excessive government entanglement with religion. And this, pretty clearly, this pledge is, the "under God" was added in the 50s during the Red Scare. It was this big hullabaloo. Let's make ourselves different than those evil atheist commies. And it has clearly a religious purpose. So Newdow, who is actually an emergency room doctor, went and got himself a law degree. He put himself through school on his own money, and he personally took this challenge all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I consider him a hero. I consider him a patriot of the highest order to go and defend the U.S. Constitution with his own money and his own effort to go all the way up there. So, did you want to have anything more to say about Newdow?
No, I completely agree with what you're saying there.
Okay.
I think he's extraordinary.
Okay, so now I've laid a little context for what Huckabee has to say. Well, Huckabee says, "I'm sure you've followed the stories of how liberal judges have targeted our cherished Pledge of Allegiance because it contains the word 'one nation under God.'" And so the answer is no. This patriot challenged it, and he defended it with respect to the Constitution. Now, in Huckabee's letter, he never mentions the Constitution or the fact that this pledge is illegal, because Huckabee wants to stroke the egos of the people who want to keep that pledge and have children recite it because they think it's cute or whatever. But it's religious indoctrination of people who don't want that. So so that's one issue. Then there's another quote in here related to this that, let's see if I can find it real quick. Damn. Dead air. Big government is threatening to silence true expressions of faith in American public life. This is immediately before that in the letter. Well, no. What's really going on here is Newdow is fighting to prevent big government from forcing people to have a particular expression of faith. So it's just the opposite. So that's false. The third quote related to this is, "The atheist who brought this lawsuit to outlaw the motto 'one nation under God' told the New York Times that he wanted to, quote, 'ferret out all the insidious uses of religion in daily life,' unquote." Well, if you read that, it looks like Newdow said that, but in actuality, Newdow didn't say that. I went and looked up the article in the New York Times, and that's a lie. The quote is there, but it comes from the author of the article, and the author of the article had a particular axe to grind and wanted to paint Newdow as a wild character. So what we see here is you see an amplification of a lie by misquoting this article.
So that was based on the editorializing
of the author.
Of the author.
Right. And so this is how Jesus got to be seen by 500 people, is somebody said something that was vaguely an exaggeration, and several more people exaggerated on top of that, and eventually you get this wild cock and bull story. Anyway, so what Michael Newdow said in reality was, why should I be made to feel like an outsider? That's an actual quote from him. And in what he's really doing is he's challenging the government, forcing his daughter to effectively pray to a God that he doesn't feel that she should believe in. And if you believe in family values, this is something that you ought to support, is people ought to have the decision how to raise their children, especially with regard to religious values.
Which is incidentally something that Huckabee appeals to over and over again in this letter, that your children and your grandchildren should have the ability to basically practice the family's religious traditions or whatever.
Sure.
And yet he wants to deny that to atheists.
To atheists, right.
Yes.
So, so we're still going down this rabbit hole. There's another quote right nearby. I know you've already seen this happening in many ways over the years, but things have gotten so bad recently that Barack Obama became president and Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House that I simply can't sit down and I simply had to sit down and share my thoughts directly with you. Well, this is another theme in the letter, is he's out to get the liberals, for whatever, right? But keep in mind here that Newdow's case went on in the 2000s and went all the way up to the Supreme Court before even Obama became president, right. and there is never anything in the letter that links Obama or Pelosi to these supposed insidious attacks on faith. So it's just a blatant scare tactic, I think, and a blatant blaming people who have no blame here.
And the last time I checked, neither Obama nor Pelosi are atheists.
They're neither atheists, and neither one has made advances in church-state separation. In fact,
right.
Atheists are kind of mad at Obama for continuing the faith-based charity initiatives that Bush put in. So this is also wrong. And this whole letter is really kind of a conservative Christian thing. Bush is not vilified, even though Bush was president and his administration was in charge during this evil atheist thing. Let's see. Here's another quote. Same area. I'm still following this one thread. It is my sad, urgent duty today to report that liberal attacks on faith are accelerating to a crisis point. Well, liberal attacks on faith. What about conservative attacks on faith? He skipped over in this Newdow article the fact that Newdow had many death threats against him for defending the Constitution. But apparently that's okay to Huckabee and all. So, what about conservative attacks on religious belief? Let's see. I got a couple more, and then we'll jump out of this particular little rabbit hole. Let's see. Our left-dominated media has mercilessly portrayed believers as either frightening fanatics or idiot simpletons. This is my favorite quote in the whole thing. Yeah. So here Huckabee's writing this letter that is really geared at fanatics or simpletons, as far as I can tell, because it's full of lies and it's full of emotional manipulation, and that's what you're doing yourself. You're part of the problem here. I challenge people in the audience, if you don't think of yourself as a fanatic or a simpleton, call in and tell us what you think of all the lies that Huckabee is telling and whether you're motivated by these lies.
Well, I guess one of the other lies that he talks about in here that I was going to bring up is that he talks about 50 years ago about the things that would have been unthinkable for our parents and grandparents to be denied prayers at public events.
Denied.
Yes, denied.
Yeah. This is a related topic, right? They want to claim that prayer has been banned.
Yeah.
And that's not true. People can pray anytime they want as individuals.
Exactly. And
so what has been banned, Jen? What are we trying to ban?
Government-endorsed prayer, or expressions of a religious faith.
Right. Where the government is dictating particular
Yeah.
religion or particular
And,
prayer.
well, and an example that comes to mind is a few years ago, the governor of Alabama had his son draft an official prayer to be used in Alabama schools. And these people saw nothing wrong with that. And of course, you know, if you say that's not cool, then you're denying them their religious freedom. But the other thing I wanted to point out here is that one of the other things that he says would have been unthinkable 50 years ago is to have someone refuse to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you mean? No Jehovah's Witness, there was no one who, just based on their religious convictions, refused to recite the Pledge of Allegiance or swear an oath or anything like that.
Yeah, the
And that's
people
absurd.
in our audience may not know, but the Jehovah's Witnesses have had quite a number of Establishment Clause lawsuits challenging being forced to pray and to, you know, bow down to a flag, these sorts of things. They reject that sort of thing. And, you know, what about their true expression of faith, you know? So.
Yeah.
What an amazing pack of lies. So just to wrap up that whole thing is like you take this patriot and you completely misquote him and completely garble the issue and you completely avoid what really is the issue, which is the Constitution and whether you're going to defend the Constitution, and you turn it into a mechanism to manipulate simpletons to give you money. What an amazing feat. Thank you, Mike. Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Did you have something else you wanted to
No.
No?
No, go ahead.
No? Okay. All right. Well, let me switch gears. I got another thing I want to hit, and that is, what is this organization that he's plugging here, right? It must be important to him if he's telling all these lies to support it. It must be really important. The organization is called Renewing American Leadership, and their stated purpose is to encourage leaders to spearhead renewal of American culture, which sounds vaguely okay, whatever that means. It's not very clear what that means. Number 2 is to advance and defend freedom and free markets. So if you've been listening so far, that might be smirk-worthy. And 3, to encourage free expression of personal faith as a cultural norm, which is also kind of smirk-worthy. Okay, so that's kind of the PC version of what they're doing. Now, the underlying theme of where they're coming from is this idea of American exceptionalism. And I talked about this a bit in a show I did a couple months ago when I was talking about buzzwords of ignorance, Judeo-Christian nation. This is a concrete example of that sort of topic, right? And you can see on their website, if you look at their core doctrine 4 of 7, you will find an article that they've written, a white paper on American exceptionalism and Judeo-Christian values and all that. And let me unpack that for everybody so that they can get an idea of where these guys are coming from. Okay, first off, U.S. is a superpower. We all sort of agree on that. And what they're claiming is that we're a superpower because of religious belief, mostly. But they have this problem. They can't ignore the fact that capitalism was a really big part of the U.S. rise to being a superpower. I mean, if we weren't capitalistic, we wouldn't be a superpower. Okay, so what they have to do is they have to tell a lie that capitalism is somehow biblical, which is very amusing, I think, right? So if you want to look at like some of the quotes of Jesus, right, in let's see, Matthew 19:21, and Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." So, and you see that also in, let's see, Luke 12:33, if you follow along in your Bible, Luke 18:22, Matthew 6:19. They're all saying much the same thing. It's like sell everything you got and give away your money. But capitalism is a completely different thing, right? Capitalism is, man, I covet that thing. I'm going to go work my butt off and go get it, right? I'm going to go make the money to buy it, right? It's self-advancement, which is a completely foreign concept in the Bible, I think, right? You're supposed to be, in the Bible, you're supposed to be subservient and obedient and follow follow the leader, be a little sheep, and get
I mean,
shorn and you know.
even if you're a
slaughtered.
slave, you're supposed to be cool with that and accept your lot in life and be the best slave you can be.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. So they've got this little problem that they're trying to promote capitalism, but they got this Jesus thing that they say they're also promoting, but it completely conflicts with it. And this whole American exceptionalism ignores the fact that, you know, we're an immigrant nation. We have people coming from a vast majority of cultures, and they've cross-fertilized and enriched our nation. Not having a world war at all on our soil has helped us, you know, not have to start from scratch like so much of Europe has done. That certainly plays into our superpower. What else? The fact that we have religious freedom and we have a broad number of religions. That's a big part of what makes us great. I think is that we can not believe and we don't have to believe what they're selling. So what they're doing here is they're trying to steal credit for God, and then they're saying, oh, well, since we have the special relationship with God, we get to have the power, right? You have to follow us because we understand God's ways and these sorts of things. So at its core, this is a lie to grab power. That's the real reason behind this renewing American leadership. So renewal, what renewal means is you'll very often hear in Christian parlance words that start with re, like reconstruction and renewal and reclamation, these sorts of things. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get to an idealistic past that never existed. The idea being that oh, if we could just get back to our beliefs, all these terrible things that were happening would be good, would be all right.
Yeah, and actually there's actually a book out there called The Way We Never Were. It was written by, I think it's Stephanie Combs. She's a professor at Evergreen College. A really good book that talks about the way we never were and how people have all this nostalgia for a past that really is mythical as what's in the religious text here.
If you talk to white males in their 50s and 60s, they have a kind of nostalgic notion of the past, right? Because things were pretty good for white males. Yeah, if you're talking to women or blacks or whatever and that are that era, if they remember the past, things were not so good, right? So this really is kind of a particular cross section. Getting back to their core values, the second core value was advancing and defending freedom and free markets. Well, now we see where the free markets come from. Is they can't be saying that this is a bad thing if it's the source of so they're trying to attach stuff to it. And the whole idea of freedom is really pretty amusing because it's very clear that they have no interest in freedom of believers that believe anything different than they do. Right? That comes through very clear.
Oh, and in fact there are specific attacks on Muslims in here.
There are, and attacks on atheists. And
equate Muslims with radical Islamic terrorists. And that's language that's
they're different.
Prevalent in
they're
here.
Different.
Yeah.
And then the final thing of their organizational thing is to encourage the free expression of personal faith. Well, what they really want here is they want to sabotage the Establishment Clause, and they want to get into power so that they can express their faith and get people to follow them. So that's really what it is. So there's a number of warning signs that scare me about this organization. One is they have a clear contempt for the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. That comes across very clearly, and it's very clear in this letter. And I think this is effectively anti-American.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I agree.
And it's amazing to me that they have a 501c3 status, right? So this is not a charity, and it's not an educational thing. It's overtly political. That's the second thing. Newt Gingrich is one of the big promoters of this, and one of the things they're plugging in here is this book where he went and found a bunch of God quotes on monuments. And well, you know, if you want to, you can find quotes that say, well, women should be subjected, and women are less than men. You know, so what? It's not true, right? So just because certain people along the way believed in God doesn't mean very much. Another red herring, another problem I see is that David Barton is on their board. He's a propagandist. He's a liar. He makes up false false U.S. history promoting Christianity, and you know, he's just bad news all the way around. Another red flag for me is all the lies and deception in Huckabee's letter. I said there were 18 false statements that I counted. You know, you're welcome to go read the letter and count them yourself. 8 unsubstantiated claims, 15 deceptive statements, and 15 statements of emotional manipulation. So if their cause was a good thing, why would they need to lie?
Yeah.
It's just like religion. It's like if you use lies to advance your religion, you're admitting that it's crap. We already know it's crap. You know, why don't you tell us some truth? So, and I think that, you know, they're claiming that atheists are a real threat to America, but I think they're a real threat to America. I think that this is an insidious organization that is deceptive at its core, and I'm kind of creeped out by the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, you know, you talked about this organization, and one of their goals is train a new generation of leaders who will defend our religious liberty in our schools and government. Well, that was the stated mission of Liberty University when Jerry Falwell founded that university. It was to basically
I didn't know that.
raise, you know,
Well,
fundamentalists.
I know he's created a law school that is tried to pump out, or was it Falwell?
Yeah, I think that was Falwell. That, did he, yeah, maybe
Either
it was,
Pat Robertson or Falwell, but
yeah, because I know Pat Robertson, I think, created an organization that it's sort of like the opposite of the ACLU. You know, it's the ACLU.
but it's the ACLJ or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and
it's meant to basically fight church-state separation, or
destroy church-state separation. Yeah. And you know, they've been phenomenally successful because a lot of the people in the Bush administration, a lot of people in some of the most conservative organizations actually came from Falwell's university, Liberty University.
Well, I understand that during the Bush administration, there were a lot of staffers that came out of Regent and some of these other
I think
Mills.
Regent, Regent was, I think, Pat Robertson's university. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you're right. He did.
Falwell likes the
come up with
word
a law-
liberty quite a bit. You see that in... Anyway, that's most of what I had as far as this letter. I think we spent a lot of time. I don't know if you have other stuff you wanted to hit on this letter. So I've talked a lot because I did
Well,
my
I
thing.
think we've got 3 callers
Okay.
on the line here, so why don't we go ahead and take some calls here,
sounds
and
great.
then we can look at some other stuff. Okay, so we've got,
Uh-oh, our phone's not lit
no.
up. We got a problem.
guys, the phone's not working.
Okay, tech help, folks. We got no lights in here. Well, I can talk a little bit more about the letter. I have another little thing.
Okay.
Hopefully, we can clear up the phone problems in the meantime.
Yeah, and Scott, if you're on, hang on, we'll get to you in just a second.
So I've made the claim earlier that this letter and this organization is a power grab, and I can tell you a little bit more of why I think it's a power grab. And in particular, there's a quote that I think is kind of amusing. Oh, and I should have done this quote earlier. America is an exceptional nation, created out of the providence of God because of the prayers of people who, on their knees, begged for a place where they could be free and raise their children in faith. Sounds so heartwarming, doesn't it? So that's the quote I want to talk about. So there's this prayer idea. There's this idea that these people prayed and something wonderful happened, and it harkens back to also the Bible, like Mark 11:24, where Jesus promises, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Sounds pretty wonderful. Just pray, and you're going to get your stuff. And this isn't a red herring. This appears in John chapter 14, verses 12 through 14. Truly, truly, I say to you, this is Jesus talking, he who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these that he will do, because I go to the Father wherever you ask my name, I will do it, and that the Father may be glorified in the Son, and if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Because he claims to be God, and he claims to answer all the prayers. And furthermore, in Matthew 18:9, Jesus says, "Again I say to you, if two of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them in the name of my Father in heaven. So we have these folks saying, oh, this prayer is really wonderful stuff. But then a little later on in the paper, Huckabee says, Newt Gingrich and I, have no substitute for your support today. No substitute at all.
So prayer doesn't work.
Prayer doesn't work. He's saying prayer doesn't work. He's saying he can't go to God. They can't pray. They got to have their money, right?
Yeah.
You got to have your money. So anyway, I thought that was kind of amazing.
I think we got our phones.
We got our
back, so-
phones.
So
Okay.
let's try. Okay. Scott.
Hey,
Hi, you're on the air.
if
I was wondering what he's on Luciferianism and Satanism.
Okay.
Satanism. What do we think of Satanism? I think it's silly.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a bunch of people who are tongue-in-cheek, let's make fun of the religion, and they claim to be Satanists, mostly just to poke on the nerves of people who are believers. And it's not my style. You know, I'd rather be a fact-based thing than a humor-based thing.
Scott, are you a Satanist?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. So I guess what was motivating that question?
Why did you ask the question, Scott?
What?
You might need to shut off your TV and just listen to the phone, because we're getting some feedback. And for all the callers, it's good to turn your TV set down when you're calling in, so that we can hear you. Or in your case, it would be, I guess, the stream, right? But we're getting,
it's on. It's not on.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we're having some other feedback issues.
Okay. So what prompted you to ask that question?
I don't know, cause I don't know. I just thought I seen one video where you were asking where you talked about it and asked about it.
Where we talked about or asked about Satanism?
It's been mentioned a number of times on the show.
Yeah, we've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
So are you an atheist?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Well, good.
Oh, good. Okay.
A lot of our out-of-state callers are atheists, it turns out, so we have a fan base. Did you have anything else for us?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and ask.
Oh, never mind. I'll just let somebody else call, I guess.
Okay, you're welcome
All right.
to call back again later. That's fine. We'll go to other calls.
Yeah, we'll go to other calls.
Thank you for
Thanks,
calling.
Scott. Okay, next we have, looks like Rob in Atlanta. Hi, Rob.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Well, this is the perfect topic for me because I am a poli-sci major and a just recently out atheist. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Religion and politics is a very interesting mix, isn't it?
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to point out is that back in the 50s when they were deciding to change the pledge, it should have been one nation, fuck you, Russia, because that's basically what under God was.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of things then. There was the pledge, there was the motto,
Yeah, and then the money.
and
They started
putting it on the money,
putting it on the
and
money.
There were at least a couple other things that I'm just blanking on, but there were 4 or 5
Yeah.
things that were pretty major that were done around that time during the Red Scare. And, and it was kind of a propaganda campaign, unfortunately, that vilified atheists as communists. We're not communists, you know. I'm a big capitalist, you know, but it was a kind of an ugly thing, I think, in that they disparaged a group of people for no real reason in order to try to make a distinction between us and Russia, right? And so, as you say, it was like, screw you, Russia.
Yeah.
That was the intent of it all.
Yeah. Well, something else I wanted to talk about was, you know, you were talking about it. People were on their knees praying for a place that they could worship and peace and stuff like that. And what I want to know is, you know, from the time that these folks, why did it take almost 1,800 years to build a country where people could, you know, worship with freedom?
Well, you know, you might go back and look at Spain during the 1500s when they were a world superpower at that time, and they were, you know, very much a Christian nation, and you know, had the Inquisition and killed off anybody who didn't believe like they do, and you might point at them, you know, but I think their tactics were pretty scary by today's standards.
Yeah.
Right.
But
well, you know, the funny thing about the Spanish Inquisition was that it wasn't actually non-Christians. It was Jewish Christians, and they didn't trust them. They thought they were basically converted for the money.
Well, Jews were given a convert or die sort of order, right? And the people who converted were never really were never trusted, and so there was this whole subculture of former Jews who may or may not have really believed in it, who were kind of outcasts.
yeah. But I mean, I would actually argue that the only way that Christianity could have survived, particularly like the Enlightenment or anything, is with state support. And so if you look all over Europe, Christianity of some flavor was the official state religion in all of these countries throughout Europe. And I would argue that's the only way that it could have survived and flourished, because in particular, you know, you had situations where it was convert or die. Or if you were not a member of the state church, there were specific limitations placed on you, so that, you know, it was very hard for you to own a business or do anything really.
Yeah, well, you know, living in a country where there's no church-state separation is a pretty ugly thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they kind of get in and control things, and the sort of worst of both come out, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, but yeah, we have quite a fight ahead of us. I mean, you know, it's scary to think that Mike Huckabee actually had a shot at being our president.
Well, I think part of the reason is that people, you know, they see him as an amiable, sweet guy, and he's probably be a fun guy to have a beer with and chat and swap stories.
I don't know, does
But-
he drink
If I
beer?
said Mike Huckabee, it would have been a Coke, because I'm sure he doesn't drink.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But you know, I think that, you know, one of the things that we're doing is we're sort of exposing what these folks are truly like when they send out their fundraising letters, which you don't see very often, because very often these letters are targeted at very specific groups that are going to be likely to be accepting of that message. And he screwed up in this case. He sent it to an atheist. And so here we are. We get to take a look at under the hood here and see what he's really like. So maybe we can do that in the future with some of the others to take a look at what they're saying. And, you know, my opinion of Huckabee has gone down dramatically in preparing for the show, because, you know, here was somebody that I thought was, you know, basically kind of a religious guy, and now I see that he's really kind of promoting something that I think is pretty insidious, and doing it in a way that's dishonorable. So my opinion has dropped dramatically just because of this. So are you in school right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, maybe you can help us sort all this political stuff out, because it's pretty interesting mess.
Well, I plan on it. You'll probably hear more from me in the future.
All right.
Because I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to get louder.
Okay, good,
All right.
Rob.
Thanks.
All right, we'll let you go.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Speaking of which, if you need to contact us at times other than when we're live here, you can do so by emailing our TV list, which is tv@atheist-community.org.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we all the people behind the scenes here, the hosts and the crew, read those letters. We don't have time often to respond to all of them. We're getting quite a deluge of those letters. And after the show, where are we going?
We are going to El Arroyo. We'll be there around 6 after the show. And if you want to know, you can actually go to our website at www.atheist-community.org. There you'll find a map to El Arroyo. And we'll be there about 6 for post-show dinner. If you're an atheist or atheist-friendly person, you're welcome to join us. You do not have to be a member of the ACA to join any of our activities.
Yeah. We welcome people to come down. If you're planning a trip, it's near 5th and Mopac, just to give you a rough idea where it is.
Okay. And we've got a couple more callers on the
Okay.
line here, so let's go to, call line number 2 for Steve in Connecticut. Steve, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there. I love to say I love you guys. You guys are great. I watch your show as much as I can.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
thanks.
I have to say I kind of worship you guys.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
We're not worthy of that.
You guys are coming a little distorted over the phone. But
Yeah, we're having a number of
I'll try my best
technical
to make out
difficulties
what I
today.
hear from you guys.
Okay, what do you got for us?
Sorry, what's that?
What do you got for us today?
Oh, I have a list of 50 questions I would love to ask you guys.
That's too many for the TV show.
No.
Why don't you ask one?
One of them.
Yeah, and then you
Well-
can send the others an email, and maybe we'll try to get to it.
Okay, well, I just want to say that you could say I was born an atheist because my
We all were,
parents
weren't
never
we?
forced their beliefs onto me.
Okay. Yeah, we're all born atheists, right? We don't believe in God. It has to be taught. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, obviously. Yeah,
We're all
yeah.
natural
But,
born
I mean,
atheists.
I have a list of questions. I mean, that I was hoping to run through all you guys, but it's impossible to just ask
No.
one.
No, we can't.
Hit us with your best one.
The best one.
Yeah, the best one. Or the
man,
one.
that is so hard to ask. Maybe you guys could talk about how can you read the Bible in a public school as literature?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, obviously. See how easy that was? Just ask one question.
Okay, ask another
I
one.
have a list of the 50 of them, and most of them are yes or no questions.
So just to elaborate just a little bit, if you're using the Bible to promote your religion or advance your religion, that's a no-no, right? Because that
That's
gets
correct.
into this Establishment Clause thing. But if you are studying it as literature or as cultural relevance, they're actually, that's just fine, and that's constitutionally allowed. And there's actually classes here in Texas where they've tried to do that. And I think that literacy in the Bible and the Quran and these sorts of things, if you have a broad literacy, is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, I would say that reading the Bible as literature, if that includes something about textual criticism as part of the curriculum, I think that'd be an excellent thing.
Mm-hmm. We have a guy in our audience who has a Mark Twain quote: "The best cure for Christianity is reading the Bible." We're not threatened by the Bible.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Okay, you got one more question for us, maybe?
Well, I got a bunch of them. I mean, these questions are really supposed to be rhetorical questions to open the minds of, mainly Christians, because we live in an area that, is mainly Christians nation. But I also wanted to let you guys know that recently I just read that from 1993 to 2008, the amount of atheists in America did double. And just recently in January, just now, the amount of atheists in America is now at 16%. And I hate to say, I can't remember where I read this, but I've just been reading so much stuff recently. I feel free to be, skeptical of what I say, but I would have appreciated to go out and find out for yourself what the actual number is. But that's where I read was 16%.
I think that came from the Pew Research poll.
Right. Now, asking about religious beliefs is kind of a tricky matter. It's a lot like asking about sexual beliefs or sexual practices, because people are often uncomfortable sharing what they really believe, or they haven't thought through it, these sorts of things. And there is an increase in the number of atheists. There's an increase, especially in the number of people called nuns, or none of the aboves, that don't follow a particular religion. They may be believers of some stripe or another, but they don't follow organized religion. And I think the change that's really happened is that it's become more acceptable publicly for people to embrace atheism and say, I really don't believe in a God. I think this is all bunk, and be able to say that without feeling ostracized or penalized or these sorts of things, and they're comfortable enough to at least say it on a survey. I think the number of atheists hasn't changed dramatically. It's possible that shows like ours and other books and things that are coming out have caused people to become more atheistic. I think that's possible, but I don't know that we've had that big of an impact. I think it's mostly an attitudinal change. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and not only that, but I think that in some of these surveys, the way you ask the question will
Matters a
determine
lot. Oh, yeah.
what kind of answer you get. Because if you ask someone, are you atheist, agnostic, secular, humanist, you go down this list, now you're at the mercy of their understanding of the definition of those words. And a lot of people
And they may identify as a cultural Catholic and not even attend church. They may call themselves a Catholic.
Yeah, and so if you ask
example.
if you give people a laundry list of denominations to pick, they may actually be a non-believer of some stripe, but they look at this and they're like, oh, well, I was raised Catholic. And so if somebody's doing this survey, they check, okay, Catholic, and you get counted amongst the Catholics. Whereas the answer might be something different. And especially with the terms atheist and agnostic, we end up with confusion about what those terms actually mean. I prefer to ask someone, in a way that really kind of brackets what they believe, such that it's, I know that I don't believe that a God exists, or I know that no God exists. That's obviously the strong atheist.
Hard, strong atheist, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if a God exists or not, but I don't believe one does. That'd be the agnostic atheist. And then I don't know if a God exists, but I believe one does. Now you've got, agnostic theist, and so on. And so if you do that, then you bracket that in, and you're not subject to definitional problems.
Yeah, if you started your line of questioning from hardcore atheist all the way down to what subsect of Christianity you believe in, you would get very, very different answers.
I think so, and I think you would end up with a lot more people identifying as either,
For one thing, they'd get tired and they'd say, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, the third one."
I
don't want to listen to the 27th one.
I would like to say that on the Dawkins scale of 1 to 7, I would be a 6.9, repeated, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if there was such a thing as an atheist fundamentalist, I would be pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to email you guys these questions because I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all of them. I do know all the answers to these questions.
Okay.
I think I'll leave you with one last question.
Don't make work for us, okay?
Because,
Send us your best stuff.
Very interesting to get your perspective on what you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, we might not be willing to take a 50-question test, and we've probably seen this list before, but
Yeah,
interesting.
and if you're sending mail to us, short questions are best, because a lot of our discussions, as you might imagine, get into long, involved things, and they're time-consuming.
You guys definitely love to go into detail onto every single one of these questions. But,
I'm certainly one of those.
You guys are getting a little distorted. I'm not making out everything you're saying.
Well, we've got other calls on the line.
So let's wrap this up, Steve. You had one more thing?
Hello?
You had one more thing?
Yeah. Does evolution or the Big Bang Theory have anything to do with religion?
It doesn't have anything to do with
yes
religion.
And no.
I mean, other than
it doesn't itself, right?
I completely agree. I would say no. Evolution is biology, Big Bang is astronomy, and religion is neither one.
Right.
Yeah.
But where it does intersect is that religion has made claims that contradict these sorts of things, and
Right.
that's
Absolutely.
And so, science isn't out to screw up religion. Science is out to understand the world.
Okay.
We're going to have to let you go because of the feedback.
So thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Oh.
So sorry about that. We had a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
So science isn't out to screw up religion or make some sort of religious statement, right? There are certain scientists that do, but science as a rule is not. But when you have a religion that claims the world is 6,000 years old, or that God created all life on the planet, that is a claim, that is a testable claim that science can examine, and it's found out that those claims are false.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, there is a conflict there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, but the conflict is when you make an absurd claim, don't expect science to censor itself
Right.
in refuting that claim.
Right. There's no respect for bad claims, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to Brad in Logan, Utah. Hi, Brad.
Hi, Jen. Hey, Don.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep,
we can.
Okay, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
Well, we're having some technical trouble today, so maybe you can just, if you're having a lot of trouble hearing us, ask your question and we'll take it offline.
Sure. Mine was more of a comment. Are you guys familiar with the news recently about the Sister Wives movie?
I heard that it's some kind of, is it a documentary?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about a polygamous family, and
Yeah, I
You
think
know-
I've seen that, where they go to some safari park or something with one of the wives. I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of absurd, but anyway.
yeah.
Okay.
But essentially, after their first episode, they became under investigation by the police in Lehi, Utah.
Wow, imagine that.
Yeah. And the last time.
So this is like a
polygamist
reality TV
was,
show where they're investigating a polygamous family? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the last time they brought a prosecution to a polygamous family was back. Sorry.
Well, they had the Warren Jeffs thing here in Texas not too long ago. But Utah may have been older.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing it. I should probably just let you go.
Okay.
So how can we see this thing? Where can you find this show?
Well, I'm not sure anymore. But really, I just wanted to bring up the point that the last time someone was prosecuted for polygamy in Utah was 2001. It was Tom Green, and he was also in a show about polygamy. And so it was one man, 6 wives, and 29 children was the show.
Wow.
TV has really sunk to a low level if you look at the reality TV shows.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, I'm so sorry. I can't hear anything you're
Okay.
saying.
We'll
I
let
love
you
the
go.
Show. I'll listen to you guys today, and have a good show.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. So for those in the audience who don't know, polygamy is illegal.
Yeah.
Having multiple wives. There are this used to be a big Mormon thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a big part of
Yeah, that-
Mormonism. There's a fair amount of that in the Bible, but the Mormons, I understand, some of them still practice it, although they don't formally declare their wives, right? So they have all these women who have children that are on welfare, and they think that this is a good thing because they're bleeding the beast, right? They're bleeding
Yeah.
the government.
And speaking of Mormonism, I remembered now what I was going to say. I think I forgot to mention that next Sunday we will not be at Romeo's for our brunch because we have our lecture series, which is at the Austin History Museum at noon.
At 9th and Guadalupe.
At 9th and Guadalupe. And our speaker next week will be Brian Spears, who's going to talk about his escape from Mormonism.
Yep. So
very-
have a first-hand account of what
Yes.
really goes on, and it should be very interesting. Because I've only heard sort of secondhand stuff, so that'll be great.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah, and speaking of this show, Sister Wives, I did see something on the news about this previously, and I did think, wow, they're really kind of hanging it out there for some kind of prosecution for polygamy here. And I guess the way they skirt the
They woke
issue
up, yeah.
is that they're married. They're legally married to one woman, and then all of their subsequent wives, it's just done in a church.
Ah, I see.
So it kind of
But I thought the
casts-
religious people really like traditional weddings in churches.
yeah. And so but the point is, it kind of goes to the whole Proposition 8, gay marriage ban, because they're saying that that they want to ban secular marriage, basically civil marriage.
Well, it seems that way.
But they're using the fact that they're only married legally to one woman to skirt the issue. So apparently, that church ceremony, it either counts or it doesn't. It's either a religious thing or it isn't.
So you can't
So,
have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, they're
huh?
kind of they're doing this. It's going both ways here. So
Religion is such an interesting topic, isn't it?
It
I think
is.
we have time for about one more call. We're
Yeah, and,
kind of getting down to the wire here.
and I don't have another caller listed here, so I'm just going to
Jump in.
hit number one. Hi, you're on the air.
All right, I got lucky. I'm
Yeah.
Joseph from Georgia.
Okay.
And
Joseph.
I know that there's technical difficulties, so I'll just spew it out real quick.
Okay.
I got, for public consumption, let's say I got good and drunk this morning with a friend of mine and went to church.
Okay.
And you might think that's a recipe for ending up in jail on a Sunday morning, but we were very mellow. We were not disruptive at all. And actually, I've recently gone through a difficult breakup, and we're both lapsed Catholics, and we walked down from her house, and I had a series of incredibly vivid religious experiences. I mean, I know it's laughable, but it was fairly profound. And
you think you were put in a suggestible
being
state?
altered and the the obviousness of that, then maybe I could have come to a different conclusion. But of course, I'm still an atheist.
So Joseph, you think you were put into a suggestible state by going to the service?
Yes.
And maybe your guard
and,
was down?
I'm maybe a little bit of an emotional softy to begin with, so it doesn't take all that much. But man, I was floored at how powerful the service was. All the slow, sad Catholic dirges all sounded great to me.
Well, I think the Catholic Church, above most others, does a really good job with the emotional. It's like going and being played like an instrument,
Yeah.
And that can be a good thing, I guess. We go to scary movies, we go to movies that make us cry, and we go and we relish that emotional experience, and it's part of being human. And I think that they do that pretty well, for better or worse.
And also that childhood indoctrination, the childhood feelings. It felt like I was 10 again. It was amazing.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting experience. Maybe you can write it up on a blog or something.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah, maybe you can write it up on a blog and share it with the world, because that sounds like an interesting thing.
Yeah, I seem to have lost my wireless connection here, which is why I'm not getting an update on the callers here.
Well, let me add one more thing. We've had a couple callers who were epileptics call in and say, "Hey, I'm an atheist, but I've had these religious-like experiences as an epileptic, and now that I'm an atheist, I know how to really interpret these things." And anyway, it was very interesting, very similar sort of idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, temporal lobe epilepsy is known to cause these kinds of religious experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Last caller.
Hi,
hello.
you're on the air.
Hello? Can you hear me, guys?
We
can hear you.
I'm having some problem hearing you, but I'll just say it really quickly. I want to really comment on the situation of Egypt and I guess Tunisia as well. And really wanted to hear you guys' opinions about something that I really perceive as being really important in societies, which is secularism. It's something that we take for granted everywhere in the world, and we think it's an atheist notion. Myself, I personally perceive secularism to be something that creates stable nations, something that it's a stabilizing force.
Well, it's a wave that we can all get along.
Secular movement in Egypt, in Tunisia, do you think that, I don't know if you guys are expert on the subject, but do you think that a secular movement in those nations could provide a stable democracy and a stable nation in general for those specific locations?
I think it could only help.
Yeah, I would add that it would be really nice if that would happen. What tends to happen during a period of instability is the kind of opportunists that are waiting around will jump in and seize control. And it may be that it won't happen immediately, but it may happen over the long run. So even if, say, a fundamentalist grabs control, we're gone.
And we're out.
We're going to continue with answering your call, but we're off the air now, folks.
Yeah.
So I think that even if a fundamentalist grabs control, we shouldn't lose hope, and we should try to support the people of those countries in order to help create a stable secular culture there. So
because I know that in Egypt there is a party that bases itself in secularism, but it's not that popular. But who knows? Maybe they'll change their minds after the revolution ensues.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of our people in our audience reminded us that we had an atheist caller call from Cairo one time, and we're just very, very thrilled. I understand you're calling from Portugal.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wow. We're thrilled. We're thrilled that we're reaching an international audience. I wish we were a little more internationally focused, but covering religion's a tough thing. Just
You're doing fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and we have so many opportunities here in the United States. So
Oh, you have just America's a great inspiration to talk about it. You guys are a great example of a nation that is based in freedoms, but sometimes when it talks about religion, it's like they don't really want to.
Well,
they believe freedoms don't apply to it. You have to be. It's a Christian nation, and whatever.
Well, we have some lofty ideals, and it's a challenge to live up to them, I think.
yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you very much for your call. I think we got to wrap up here and pack up the studio, but we appreciate you calling.
Okay, and I appreciate your show, guys.
Okay,
You guys
thank
do
you.
a great job.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Bye.